British Prime Minister has said he will make a free trade deal between Australia and Britain a top priority after his landslide election victory. Scott Morrison spoke to his British counterpart over the weekend, congratulating him on his win. Mr Morrison told the Australian newspaper the two agreed to fast-track the proposed free trade agreement between Australia and Britain, with negotiations expected to start early next year. A final deal could potentially be struck within the next 12 months, making Australia one of the first countries to secure a post-Brexit free trade agreement. British Labor leader Jeremy Corbyn has apologised for his party's crushing election loss, but insists that it wasn't down to his policies. Mr Corbyn will step down as leader in the new year after last week's defeat and says he takes responsibility for his part in the result. Kate McCann has more from Westminster.
I think it's really interesting what Jeremy Corbyn has written in this article, because what he is essentially saying is that he believes that everything he said, all the policies, all the speeches that he made to the country were right. And actually, the bottom paragraph of his article goes into detail about how he believes that that project ought to continue. And this really now is the central question for Labour MPs and members of the party going forward, because they have to make a decision. Do they believe that in this general election it was the messenger, Jeremy Corbyn, who was wrong, or was it the message, or some combination of both? Now, depending on what they think about that, and there's certainly lots of MPs and others writing in Sunday newspapers telling us exactly what they do think was the problem, depending on the outcome of that decision, they're going to have to make a decision about who the next leader is and exactly which direction they take the party in from here. And it's a really critical choice, because the Labour Party has been all but wiped out in some of the areas of the North and the Midlands which they thought they could rely on as heartlands. They no longer can. The party is now having a deep look at itself and what it offers to the country. And, of course, there are those critics of Jeremy Corbyn, they've been here for a very long time, who believe that he never ought to have been leader in the first place. Caroline Flint is one of those. And interestingly, listen to what Len McCluskey says too. He's been a supporter of Mr Corbyn, but now there are some questions being asked even at that level in the party. Here's what they had to say.
Nearly on every doorstep, Jeremy Corbyn came up as a negative. People didn't trust him, they didn't believe him. People from armed forces families with connections were worried about him, and that undoubtedly was an issue.
The issue of Jeremy's leadership was undoubtedly an issue on the doorstep, and it was linked to Brexit. But you're asking me a different question. You're asking why should Labour not change its policies? Well, it shouldn't change its policies because they are very, very popular. We will now have a new leader. That new leader, I suspect, will come from a new generation, and we'll see where that takes us, because what Jeremy's done, remember, we are the largest political party in Europe because of Jeremy Corbyn.